Seems there's something going on with my camera. Let's do this. Well, that's very strange. My camera doesn't seem to want to be working. Oh no. Let's see here. Customization. Let's see, webcam. Well, that's not good. Well, perhaps it's a YouTube glitch. Let's see. Well, that's not good. Why don't we try this? Haha, here we go. Oh my goodness. That was so strange. It was not starting my camera for some reason. So you might notice that things look a little bit different in my office. And that's because I have a little bit of a different camera setup for this one. And I'm actually using, wait for it, 2 cameras. Ooh. So, because I'm going to be putting together this Lego set that my husband and my stepson got me for Christmas. And while I'm putting together this Lego set, what I was going to do is I was going to answer one of the most commonly asked questions that I get from a lot of people about me and interpreting. Let me see here real quick. I just want to double check and make sure the audio is good too. Yep, audio is good. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that was very strange. I'm not sure what was happening. So I use OBS for a virtual camera. That way I can have multiple inputs and stuff. But I'm going to be putting this Lego set in my office. Actually, let's see if I can. Right over there. It's going to go up there. I used to have a whole bunch of plants up there, but funny story, I'm a plant killer. I'm a plant murderer. I am a plant... I can't keep plants alive. I have one plant left in my office, but it's this little succulent. Like, look how dead that thing is. And I just so you know, I do water my plants. I'm not neglectful like that. I take care of them. It's just I'm just not very good at it. So I wanted to put together this Lego set, and I wanted to answer the question how I became a medical interpreter, and specifically also how I learned Spanish, because I'm a non-native Spanish speaker. I did not grow up speaking Spanish. But first, just to emphasize that this is a very, very informal kind of live event, I'm putting on my robe. My mother-in-law got me this robe for Christmas, and it's very comfy. So just wanted to emphasize here, this is very, very informal. Here we go. All right. So we're all ready to put together our Lego set. I haven't even opened up the box yet. Maybe I should have done that before I got. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to have it as side cam. Oh yeah. We're going to get this started. So let's see. I might need a pair of scissors. And I apologize in advance if my chair is squeaking too much. I tried to throw some WD-40 on it, but that didn't work out too well. Let me move my mic too. Oh yes. This is the most like impromptu setup. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of days, but just haven't really had the opportunity. I was working with someone on a big translation project. Good God, how do you open this thing? Doesn't even have, did they glue this shut? Oh my gosh, I think I have to cut open this box. All right, y'all. I bet you never thought you'd come onto my YouTube channel and see me cutting open a box here, but it's going to happen. I really should have opened this thing before I started, but you know, that is life. So anyways, in terms of how I started, well, I guess we'll have to start with how I learned Spanish. So French was actually my second language. I, grew up in the middle of nowhere in the country, but, have some, oh gosh, sorry, this box is like really hard to open. Not really that important how and why French is my second language. English is my first language. Okay, I know you're like not really seeing anything right now, but I promise you, it's not that interesting. I'm opening a box. Oh wow, there's so many like colorful pieces. The colors don't really look right on camera, but whatever. Anyway, so I grew up in the middle of nowhere in the country. I actually took Spanish in high school. But if I had a nickel for every person who took Spanish in high school and didn't remember a thing about Spanish, I'd be a millionaire, honestly. So that's kind of how it went down with me is I took Spanish in high school. I did not remember a thing. But French, I was definitely way better in French. I was fluent in French. My French accent was pretty on point. However, that is not the case now. Now the Spanish is holding, the Spanish is holding the French hostage in my brain. So yeah, I took Spanish in high school, completely forgot it. And then I started working in food service. And I don't know if any of you have worked in food service, but it's pretty common here in the United States, at least where I'm located. I'm located in Virginia. Where I grew up was kind of like in almost like central Virginia, but I also lived in Northern Virginia. And in Northern Virginia, there are lots of Spanish speakers. Lots and lots and lots. Why am I opening bag 4? Because talking and putting together a Lego set was probably not the best idea, but we're going to do it anyway. So, where was I? Oh yeah, I was working in restaurants. And I actually, this was a couple of years that I was working in restaurants. And a lot of the folks who work in restaurants are Spanish speakers in restaurant kitchens. So, I don't know what just fell, but something fell. And, I would try to communicate with folks in the kitchen, as I'm sure most people who work in kitchens do. I feel like most United Statesians, we all have some level of knowledge with Spanish. And we always try and make fools of ourselves and practice with others and continue to make fools of ourselves. And so I did that for a little while. And then I ended up working at Edible Arrangements. I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Edible Arrangements. But they make like fruit arrangements, like bouquets, kind of like something like this, but with fruit. So it's edible. That's why it's called Edible Arrangements. And I worked in the kitchen, but I also worked in the front. So I would be selling arrangements to people, and then I would go back to the kitchen and I'd usually package up the arrangements. But a couple of the people who worked back in the kitchen spoke Spanish, and I was actually in charge of giving them a lot of commands, like, in terms of, okay, well, these are the orders that we need to get out today. Okay, it's actually happening. I'm finally putting some Lego pieces together. It only took me 10 minutes into this video to put the Legos together. But yeah, working in the kitchen, I had to give lots of instructions, and I also had to learn how to make the arrangements. But the thing is that there was no one there who spoke English who could really teach me how to make these arrangements. And so the folks in the kitchen who spoke Spanish would try their best to instruct me on how to make these arrangements. And so I actually learned from Spanish speakers. It says bag 1, but I'm not finding this piece. Where's the bloody piece? Come on, where are you? Oh, it's because it's in here. Haha. Yeah, really hard to talk and put together a Lego set at the same time, surprisingly. Maybe I should have tested this out with a smaller Lego set. Anyways, I'm very adept at building Lego sets. I just want to put that out there. I've built many a Lego set in my life. But they had to instruct me on how to construct these arrangements in Spanglish, basically. And so that's where I first started, like, using my very limited Spanish to try and figure out how to make these fruit arrangements. And from there, I would have to give like instructions. It would literally just be me in front. And then in addition to that, I would have to go back in there in the kitchen and make sure people were making arrangements correctly. And so, that gave me some practice. And then I started using like apps. Now, back in the day, this was around like 2009, 2010. We didn't have maybe Duolingo did exist back then, but I didn't know about it. And I was actually using this game on the Nintendo DS called My Spanish Coach to practice Spanish and improve my Spanish grammar. And then I hated that job, and so I quit it. And I started working at a pizza place. And in that pizza place, oh my gosh, that pizza place was probably where I learned most of my Spanish, to be quite honest. And we had, a lot of folks in the kitchen who spoke Spanish again. And like I said earlier, in the United States, in case you're not familiar with how things are in the United States, this is very common that in restaurant kitchens, you'll have a lot of Spanish speakers working. And so I had someone from Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. At one point, we had someone from Puerto Rico. And I ended up becoming I worked up front. So I would work at the counter. And then I ended up becoming the catering coordinator. And as the catering coordinator, I had to speak a lot with the kitchen to make sure that we had everything that we needed for all the catering orders going out. And so that's where I really, really started using my Spanish more. And I know I'm going to keep on saying that throughout this, but that's really that's really the place I feel like where I got to practice and use my Spanish the most was working at the pizzeria. And I have to give a shout out to my partner in crime, Jose, hardest working guy ever. And he worked the line. And it was really unfortunate because he was literally the hardest working person there. But some of our coworkers were not very nice to him. And I would get into it in Spanish with one of the people back in the kitchen because they were, quite honestly, and I'm going to put it out there. Like, I don't care if he's watching, because he knows it's true. He was lazy, and he would end up putting a lot of the work on my buddy Jose. And so that's how I got really, really good at those sort of heated situations in Spanish, was from kind of mediating between my coworkers at the time. And I worked there for about, I think, almost like 2 years or something. And during that time, I decided I needed more money, as many of us do. I'm sure this is still a feeling that I can relate to as an interpreter. I started working at Rite Aid, which was actually in the same shopping center. And Rite Aid, and this was in Northern Virginia. And at that time, I actually ended up living in a Spanish-speaking neighborhood. I was dating a Spanish-speaking guy who was bilingual, also spoke English. And I was just completely surrounded by Spanish all the time. So I never left the United States. Fun fact, I've actually never left the United States, but I am fluent in Spanish. And that's because of this, the amazing diversity that we have here in the United States. You can actually pick up another language that way, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I worked at Rite Aid, and there it was way more people coming in who spoke Spanish. I also did Western Union money orders. So I had to become very proficient at my customer service level Spanish, which I still to this day use. And then just making sure I did this right. And I also had people who would come into the pizzeria who spoke Spanish and would order their food. This is where I had a couple of embarrassing stories to share. For the longest time, no one would correct me when I would make mistakes, which was just, okay, I know they were being nice, but holy guacamole, the mistakes that I would make when I first started learning Spanish. For the longest time, I thought cents, like your change is $3.45, I would say 45 centavos. Centavos. What was I thinking? No one would correct me. No one would even laugh at me. People would just be like, oh yeah, this gringa here, she can't speak Spanish. It's whatever. She's trying. Until one day a customer told me, no es centavos, es centavos. It's not centavos, it's centavos. So it's not CENTAGUAS. It's CENTAV as in Victor OS. Terrified, mortified, among other mistakes that I made. But, working with my coworkers, especially my, at the time, ride or die Jose, who I still occasionally talk to, we worked, there was a little window between us, and we worked within like 3 to 5 feet of each other for a couple of years. And so, I would do some prep work too. And so we'd be doing our prep work, and we'd talk about all these random things. We'd talk about the universe. We talk about, our belief systems. Heck, we would even talk about I ended up talking to him about the Chinese zodiac, because that was something that I was really interested in back then. And it was really funny because we ended up coming up with, I'm the snake in the Chinese zodiac. And I had to explain to him that, no. Like, yes, in like, obviously in Christian terms, a snake is, a bad omen, a bad thing, original sin and all that. And the apple from the tree and Adam and Eve and all that. But, in other cultures, snakes are seen as little dragons. So they're actually, wise. And so he started calling me La Culebra, which was my nickname. And we even had little hand movements that we would do. And he was a dog in the Chinese zodiac. And so I, called him Perro. So it was just like our little jokes back and forth and all these conversations we would have. And that I feel like is really, really what got my Spanish to the point where I was fluent. I was fluent in Spanish. Um, and it came from working in restaurants, multiple uh, kind of food service type places, and just practicing with people. And I ended up becoming the food safety manager, so I had to get like Serve Safe certified, and teach people about like, okay, well, we got to make sure that we heat this food up to this particular temperature. We need to make sure that we're storing our foods in this particular way, so as not to give anyone food poisoning, right? And I ended up having a situation with my roommates. And my boyfriend at the time was living in Richmond. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I want to move to Richmond and I want to go to college and I want to become a Spanish speaking social worker. Because at the end of the day, I actually had a near death experience when I was living in Northern Virginia that resulted in me being admitted to the hospital, staying in the hospital. I was honestly not even conscious during a lot of it. So I don't remember how many days I was there. But when I left the hospital, didn't really have anyone to take care of me. One of my English speaking coworkers from Edible Arrangements picked me up. So this happened earlier on, I guess. But yeah, I didn't have many people in my life, and around that time is where I really started receiving a lot of support and a lot of love from the Spanish speaking community. My Spanish speaking roommates, my Spanish speaking coworkers, my bilingual coworkers. We had a lot of heritage speakers who worked at the restaurant. We had some other gringos and gringas who also worked at the restaurant, the pizzeria, who spoke Spanish as a result of working there. And yeah, that was where my love for the Spanish speaking community really was born. I really loved the difference in culture, because here in the United States, everyone's on their own. You don't really have a community. But when I got out of the hospital and I didn't have a whole lot of people to turn to, I found a lot of comfort and a lot of community and a lot of love in the community of Spanish speakers up there in Northern Virginia. And they'll always hold a special place in my heart. And yeah, that's where I decided I wanted to become a Spanish speaking social worker. That was what I really wanted to do. And so when I had the whole thing happen with my roommates up in Northern Virginia, where I did not feel comfortable living with them anymore, I didn't want to go through the whole rigmarole of finding another place to live. My boyfriend at the time lived in Richmond. And here in Richmond, we have, because this is where I live now. Ever since I moved here, I've never moved away. I decided to go to VCU because they actually have a really great school for social work. But when I first started going to VCU, first off, I want to point out that I was already fluent in Spanish. I will say that my grammar was terrible. So I only tested into Spanish 2 something. So I hadn't quite tested into 300 level because my grammar was horrendous. And then I could not declare social work as my major at that time. I could only declare Spanish as my major. So VCU is Virginia Commonwealth University. And they told me it's okay, you can declare social work as your second major in your junior year. I was like, okay, cool. I'll focus on the Spanish for now, improve my Spanish grammar, all that. I was probably the only person in a lot of my classes who wasn't afraid to speak Spanish in class. I took ruthless advantage of being able to speak Spanish with, a bunch of native Spanish speakers. I mean, not a bunch, my professors. So I always was kind of like a teacher's pet in all of my Spanish classes because I wanted to absorb as much as I could. And so I, studied Spanish. I really enjoyed it. I had Spanish literature classes. I, of course, had Spanish grammar classes earlier on. But yeah, Spanish literature classes, history classes, business classes. And I was always hyper focused on Latin American Spanish. We had the choice to kind of either go into, classes where they talked about Castilian Spanish, Spain Spanish. And I was totally not interested in those. I only wanted to hyper focus on Latin American Spanish because I knew doing whatever I was going to do here in the United States, that wasn't really going to do anything for me. I was very interested in Latin American culture. And actually, my minor was in Latin American studies. So in my junior year, when I was allowed to declare social work as my major, supposedly, I went to advising and I was going to declare social work as my major. But it turns out that they said you're not allowed to double major in anything together with social work, which was really, really not smart. I have a lot of qualms with VCU. Let it be known. Let it be known. So I was just like, well, this sucks. You're basically telling me I have to choose between my Spanish and social work. I think I did this wrong. Oopsies. Yeah, they were making me choose between Spanish and social work. I'm going to have to redo all these. See, you get so distracted. That's the thing, man. Like, you cannot put these Lego sets together when you are talking. It does not work. Pro tip. What I might have to do is, I don't know. I'll figure something out. But yeah, wild that they wouldn't let me double major with Spanish and social work. And we wonder why, there's such a premium on Spanish speaking social workers. They kind of don't let it happen. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm not leaving my Spanish behind. I will, trying to stay up here so people can see what the heck I'm doing. I will double down on the Spanish. I will go into this. There's this program that I found out about at VCU. Love this program, by the way, called the Spanish English Translation and Interpretation Program. So that's the program that I went into. And it is taught by a federally certified legal interpreter. Amazing. And at the time, a state certified legal interpreter who was also a gringa, a white lady. She unfortunately passed away a few years ago. Big loss to the interpreting community, big loss to just the world in general, I think. She was such a sweet person. And she really gave me a lot of confidence because you think the imposter syndrome is real as an interpreter, but, we're all, most of us, I think, are non-native speakers of at least one of our working languages. And I just felt like I was fighting against such odds to be a non-native Spanish interpreter or translator because the program was Spanish English translation and interpretation. But seeing one of my professors being, a non-native speaker of that language and being successful. I looked up to her so much. So, but yeah, like I said, she did pass away. And that program, oh my gosh, I can't say enough good things about it. It's fantastic. And back when I took it, it was just focused on legal and medical interpreting and translating. But nowadays, from my understanding, it also focuses on community interpreting as well. So, social services type stuff, really educational, really anything you can think of that comes with community interpreting. They cover that now as well, which I think is so awesome. But back when I took it, we focused on legal interpreting and medical interpreting. And to this day, legal interpreting scares the loving bejesus out of me. So, needless to say, I have not and likely will never pursue legal interpreting, although I did get training in it. And I was so lucky because now that I teach with a medical interpreting training program, Jesus, this is hard to put on. Now that I teach with a medical interpreting training program, I see just how useful the program I completed was for me. Because I think I put this on wrong. Holy guacamole. Watch my thumb strength. Here's a testament to my thumb strength. Yeah, I was so incredibly lucky to go through this program because we had so much hands-on practice. We were mentored by, easily, in my opinion, one of the most talented interpreters I've ever met. It was wild. And I actually wanted to be a translator. I didn't want to be an interpreter. Oh, what am I putting together? Oh, hi. I'm putting together, wait for it. This guy, the orchid. Yeah. I know I didn't have a lot of people joining me in the beginning. But this is kind of how I go. This is kind of how I do lives. I do lives this way. If people watch, great. If people don't watch, they can always watch the recording later. And I'm probably going to end up cutting this one down to me speeding through all the parts where I'm just kind of going, So right now I'm talking about the program that I went through in college at Virginia Commonwealth University called the Spanish English Translation and Interpretation Program, and trying to figure out how the heck I accomplished this. I feel like I'm in like the Da Vinci Code, where he has like the thing. Oh, wait, I think I almost have it. He has like the cipher or whatever, and he has to put it together. Oh, I think I did it. I think that's it. Maybe. Hey, I think I got it. Okay. But yeah, so much hands-on experience in that program. And I was so grateful. I mean, I wasn't grateful then, but I am definitely super incredibly grateful now that the program was over the course of a couple of years versus over the course of a couple of months. Oh my God, I did it wrong again. What is my problem? Because the one thing that I hear from a lot of students in these training programs, including the training program that I teach with which I think we're an excellent training program. We're great. We give you all the knowledge that you need. But people always want these programs to be so short. They're like 40 hours. Well, if it says that I only have to take 40 hours, I only want to take 40 hours. 40 hours is nothing. It is nothing in the grand scheme of things. And I feel so bad sometimes when students are like, oh my gosh, like this is just so much information in a short period of time. It is. It absolutely is. So I ended up counting up the number of oh, look, going to the next page. I ended up counting the number of hours that I spent in my program. And it ended up working out to something, including my internship, to be like 400 some hours. And even after those 400 some hours, when I finally did start interpreting, I discovered I felt I was super nervous getting started when I first started interpreting. I was so incredibly nervous. I had panic attacks. My professor and all my classmates can attest to this. I was on the verge of a panic attack in class, ran out to the restroom, proceeded to have a full-blown panic attack in the bathroom. My professor came in and was, comforting me and stuff. And that's really how nervous I was about practicing in front of class, let alone interpreting in the field. So I feel so much for these students who go through these 40-hour programs and they go into them thinking, okay, yeah, I'll be totally ready by the end. Like like I said, it's gonna give you all the knowledge, but I was so blessed to have a program that was really, oh gosh, how did that get in there? That was really deliberate and prepared me so well and gave me so much practice. I remember we had so much note-taking practice. And I credit my ability to take notes to the level that I'm able to today with the fact that I had just so much practice, so much note-taking practice. It was wild. So yeah, that's just kind of like my my experience in the program. And I didn't feel prepared when I finished until I started interpreting. The first time that I started interpreting, so I had an internship that I was completing at a local safety net clinic. Oh, goodness gracious. And that internship, it was I think a minimum of 120 hours. I ended up completing 160 hours where I actively was interpreting in safety net clinics and then also translating. And I remember so clearly the very first time that I interpreted, because I remember feeling so unprepared. I remember feeling like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. Like, how could I possibly do this? And of course, the imposter syndrome. I'm a non-native Spanish speaker. People aren't going to want me to be their interpreter. Oh, goodness gracious. Just stabbed myself with my nails. People aren't going to want me as their interpreter. And then I walked into that room and I did it. And when I say I did it, it was like, I felt like I was, everything just kind of clicked and everything came together. And that's what I was meant to do. That's literally how it felt. I felt like I was where I was meant to be. And that was my very first experience interpreting. And I remember, and this is something that happens to me when I interpret simultaneously, not so much when I'm interpreting consecutively now. I missed a step. When I was interpreting that first time, it was like I kind of dissociated. I was interpreting and I was doing just fine, but it was almost like I was interpreting and I was able to have my own independent thoughts separate from interpreting. It was really weird. It doesn't happen to me very often these days, but it definitely happened a lot in the beginning and definitely in that first experience I had interpreting, where it was almost like I had two brains, and one brain was interpreting and one brain was thinking about, wow, this is so much easier than I thought it was going to be. And that really only happens to me to this day when I'm interpreting simultaneously. Occasionally, not always. And so, yeah, that was my first experience interpreting. I was really well prepared, way more prepared than I thought I was going to be. And I guess that just really highlights the point that you're never going to feel ready. I think most people never admit that they feel ready until they actually do it, and then they see that they're ready. So if you ever have that feeling, like whether it be for a certification exam, I'm not ready, or anything like that, just remember my interpreting story. The first time I interpreted, I went through like 400 some hours of training and I was like, I'm not ready. And then I did it and I was like, wait a second, I was ready. So that's why I really don't believe people a lot of the time when they say they're not ready. So yeah. But from there, you know, I graduated summa cum laude. And it was really weird when I graduated because I was the only person in the School of World Studies who graduated summa cum laude. And so when they said, you know, summa cum laude, and then they said Kelly Gretsch, because that's my maiden name, that was it. I was the only person. And then everyone in the auditorium stood up and was screaming and shouting. It was like a movie moment. It was so weird. But yeah, I graduated. And I got my my bachelor's in foreign language with a concentration in Spanish. And then I completed that SETI program, the Spanish English Translation and Interpretation program. And I did this wrong again. Wow, I'm such a genius. No, I didn't. What is my problem? I have something wrong with me here. And I didn't immediately go into interpreting. I did when I graduated. I first. Okay, that seems right. Oh my gosh, these are like really. This is a surprisingly complicated Lego set. Or maybe it's just because I'm talking while I'm putting it together. That's what makes it complicated. Oh yeah, I'm just reading comments. It's all the way over on the other screen. So see, like I'm over here. And then that's that desk over there. I'm over there. So it's the screen is right here. All right, going back to the side cam. Ooh. Oh no, the scissors, they fell. So I started out when I graduated, I did not, because I know from experience from my French, from, you know, originally taking Spanish in high school and literally forgetting every single thing. I decided, you know what, I need to keep practicing. I cannot take a break. I have to keep doing this in order to keep these skills fresh. I know how perishable these skills are. And so one of the places where I had interned during my internship was a free clinic, not a free clinic, but a safety net clinic for people whose income was below a certain percentage of the federal poverty level. And I decided to keep volunteering with them as an interpreter. And I graduated in December. And then they had a job opening in, I think, end of January, if I'm not mistaken. And then by February, I was working there. And I was not working as an interpreter. I was working as a bilingual patient advocate. So what does that mean? Well, it's just a fancy, like a glorified receptionist, basically. I worked in reception. But I also had a lot of responsibilities. I was the diagnostic imaging coordinator. I was the referral coordinator. I would also interpret because they were very excited to have me working there because, you know, I don't know if you know how it is in a lot of safety net clinics here in the United States, but a lot of them they're oh my goodness, they are so in need of volunteers that sometimes, and this is not knocking on anyone here, but sometimes it says to push this all the way down, but I'm not. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. That worked. Okay. But just out of the fact that, you know, not a lot of people want to volunteer their time to interpret, there's always a shortage of interpreting volunteers. And then a lot of the people who are interpreters don't have like formal interpreter training. So I know they were really excited to have me as an employee because anytime they would need an interpreter, they would call me. But that was very stressful. I always tell people that if I'm going to dump this out before I keep talking. I always tell people that if you ever are a dual role interpreter, man down. Where are you? Oh gosh, I might need to get on the floor to find this one. Ah, I lost a Lego, y'all. Okay. Well, I guess while I'm on the floor looking for this Lego that somehow escaped my grasp. Oh, here it is. I can tell you all about being a dual role interpreter, where you're not only an interpreter, but you're something else. You're an interpreter and you're a nurse. You're an interpreter and you're, a receptionist in my case, and also a diagnostic imaging coordinator and a referral coordinator. I always tell people, whenever you're a dual role interpreter, it is not easy. It is not easy at all. You have to be super familiar with the medical interpreting codes of ethics and standards of practice. You're doing the work of multiple people, and I was already doing the work of multiple people before I was, their interpreter. I was already, like I said, receptionist, diagnostic imaging coordinator, and referral coordinator. But as a dual role interpreter, it's so much, I feel like that adds so much more to your plate, because a lot of people don't know a lot about working with interpreters. And so they'll ask you to do things where you're violating your boundaries. They'll ask you to do extra things while you're interpreting. And you really have to use those moments to educate people about cognitive load, about, okay, I'm multitasking and you're asking me to interpret very sensitive healthcare information that if I misinterpret it, it could have some pretty drastic consequences for that person. So I had to be really, and a lot of people didn't like me for it, but I had to be really assertive with my boundaries. And I had to tell people things like, if I was interpreting in the room for a provider and that provider says to me, hey, yo, Kelly, how do you submit an orthopedic referral? I forgot. And I'm the referral coordinator. I would have to go, excuse me, this is the interpreter speaking, but I apologize. At this moment, my activities are limited to that of interpreting. I'd be happy to help you after we're done with the appointment. And sometimes people would not be happy about that. So, and it stinks because a lot of people are dual role interpreters. A lot of times they don't get good training about the codes of ethics and standards of practice, and without realizing it, are, overburdening themselves cognitively, and, maybe making mistakes and things like that could potentially affect people's health and well-being. And then it's intimidating. Like you have to educate people. And a lot of times people don't want to be educated. People just want you to do what they're telling you to do. And that's it. But I meet so many people who are, taking interpreter training programs, and their boss is paying for them to take the interpreter training program. And, I always tell my students, like, when you're wearing your interpreter hat, you're wearing your interpreter hat. That's it. That's it. You can't be wearing a nursing hat and an interpreter hat at the same time. So then they have to go back to their employer who's paying for their training and tell them, hey, listen, this thing that you're asking me to do is not ethical. And that's a tough position to be in because they're paying for your training. So yeah, I worked in that safety net clinic. I think I'm terrible with time frames. I feel like COVID during the pandemic has just skewed my perception of time so much. But I think I was there for about 2 years. And it was, listen, that clinic and clinics like it, they do such excellent work. They fill such a need in the community in our completely and utterly hopelessly broken healthcare system. But either way, they carry a huge burden. And, if you work there as an employee, you shoulder some of that burden. And you're oftentimes doing the job of so many people at once. And I'll be honest with you. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle it. I'm such a type A person. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with type A and type A people are very particular. They're very exacting. They're very they're very Kelly. Type B people are very relaxed and very kind of go with the flow people. But I am not one of those people. I'm not. And I think because of that, that made that job that much more stressful for me because, you can't be a perfectionist and have 50 million things to do and expect your work to be done perfectly every time. You just can't. And then the pressure of, people bothering me about seemingly minor medical complaints when I had referrals for patients who were, uh, they had cancer and they had to be referred to an oncologist. And I would have that referral sitting on my desk and a patient with, a comparatively minor issue taking up my time to, effectively taking time away from me attending to a patient's oncology referral and things like that. And that's really what got to me. And so, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to interpret. And so I made the very difficult decision to quit my job there. I gave them a month's notice because I wanted to make sure that there was a smooth transition. And I actually went back to working at my old job that I had in college, which was working at a smoke shop. I worked at a smoke shop for about 7 years. And, I'm still very good friends with a lot of the people who I worked with there. Anyone who knows me personally or has known me for any length of time before working in the shop would have been like, Kelly, work in a smoke shop? Are you kidding me? That's very much not the type of person that I am, but I worked there and I went back and I worked there part-time until I could build up my interpreting contracts because I was working as an independent contractor, as an in-person interpreter. It's always tricky learning about the agencies in the area where you work. So I see someone asking what I'm building. I am building the Lego Orchid set. So I think I'm going to be able to finish it because I'm being really good about taking a while to talk about this. I normally wouldn't take this long to talk about this. Normally, I can knock this story out in like a minute and 30 seconds tops. But I'm really, really taking it slow here. So after I stopped working at the safety net clinic where I was interpreter, my official title was bilingual patient advocate. So I was an interpreter, I was a receptionist, I was a diagnostic imaging coordinator, and I was a referral coordinator. Very stressful job. They did excellent work for the community. It just props to anyone who I actually ran into an old coworker of mine there the other day. Props to anyone who really contributes to the community like that because it is incredibly difficult. Very hardworking, good people who work there. But yeah, after I quit, I went and I worked back at the old smoke shop that I used to work at in college, which might be surprising to some people. But like I said, while I was working at the smoke shop, actually, while I was working at the clinic, one of my coworkers there, who I still actually talk to, has actually used some materials for my YouTube channel for training purposes. She actually told me about this interpreting agency, which is the very first interpreting agency I worked with as an in-person interpreter. And to this day remains my favorite interpreting agency because they're a small local business, not one of the big interpreting mega corporations, right? That treat us all like numbers. And yeah, so I had that first contract and I had to do a lot of digging It is tough, y'all, as an in-person interpreter. Not just as an in-person interpreter in general, but as an in-person an in-person contractor is tough. I actually did have a short stint of being a staff interpreter for a local hospital system. I worked at the VCU I worked for, the VCU Department of Family Medicine and Population Health as an interpreter for their enhanced teaching practice clinic. So it was a teaching clinic where we had, I believe it was first year medical students and second year pharmacy students. I could be wrong about that. So after I stopped working at the clinic and was working at the smoke shop, because hey, girls gotta eat, right? Had to support my family, contribute in some way. I started accumulating contracts, and that's when the Department of Family Medicine and Population Health was actually hiring a new interpreter for their ETP clinic, which actually took place at my old place of employment, the Safety Net Clinic. And so I was in charge of not only interpreting, but I would work closely with the teams of medical and pharmacy students and teach them about working with interpreters. I would interpret for them, but at the same time, I would also teach them how to work with interpreters, which was really, really cool because I had actually done my internship with the ETP clinic. And so I had already kind of fulfilled this role. And the supervising physicians were all familiar with me. There were some funny moments where, they would get all the student teams together and they would ask them questions about their patients and, what medications they should prescribe them, what would be the next step in their treatment plan. And sometimes the students would sit there scratching their heads, and then they would turn and they'd ask myself or one of the other interpreters who had interpreted for 1 million of these appointments, well, what do you think we should do, Kelly? I think we should prescribe them amitriptyline. So that was really funny. But unfortunately, when the pandemic started, they stopped doing the clinic. I actually lost my job there because, they were letting everyone go. And to my knowledge, that clinic hasn't started up again. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, I worked part-time at the smoke shop, and, I would schedule interpreting assignments like around my work schedule. It was a pretty chill time in my life. Working with the smoke shop was pretty chill. And then I continued volunteering. I also volunteered with another, it's actually a service that provides specialty care to the local safety net clinics. I volunteered with them as well. And I would take paid interpreting assignments with the agencies that I worked with. And slowly but surely, I built up my contracts. And it got to the point where I could start interpreting, relatively close to full time. And so I decided to quit working at the smoke shop again, and just start working for myself as an interpreter. But I'll tell you, I guess, some of the tricks that I used to get interpreting contracts with local hospitals. Not for me as my business to land contracts with hospitals, but to figure out what companies local medical facilities were using for their interpreter services, their in-person interpreter services. I called around, and like sometimes people would tell me that they couldn't give me that information, and I'd note it down, and then I'd actually give them a call back later, like on another day or something, maybe when someone else was there, or I'd just be really nice to people. And I'd be like, yeah, hey, I was curious, what service? I hear you all have in-person interpreters. What service do you use? What company do you use for in-person interpreters? And if I was nice enough, sometimes they'd be like, well, I don't know the name of the company, but this is the number that we call. And then I'd call the number, and I'd literally ask them. I'd be like, hi, I'm just calling. I'm trying to figure out what company this is. I'm an interpreter. I'm looking for work. Sometimes they'd hang up on me. Sometimes they'd be like, you can't have this number. This is the interpreter request line, blah, 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 blah. And then hang up on me. But I would call them back and I'd ask them. And they would let me at least know the name of the company sometimes. There was this one time I had someone answer and they were super helpful. They were like, yeah, so if you want to apply with us, all you got to do is, go to this URL, go to this web page and submit your application and your resume or whatever. And that's how I did it. And then I would find like stuff on like, Glassdoor and LinkedIn and stuff like that. And slowly but surely I built up my contracts to where I had like a couple of dozen contracts, not a couple of dozen, but about a dozen contracts with interpreting agencies. And some of these interpreting agencies will only give me like one job a year, okay, or like one job every couple of months. But you add enough of them together, you mishmash enough contracts together, you end up having a pretty regular stream of work. So I still currently work as an in-person interpreter. I've almost always worked as an in-person interpreter, but when the pandemic hit, things changed, and they changed really quick. I lost one of my major contracts, and they were very, very dishonest about just the whole process. They tried to accuse me of falsifying my credentials, falsifying my work history. And I provided all sorts of proof that I had worked at all the places that I said I had worked, and no response. And then I found out later that they were actually lowering interpreter pay. They were, reducing their pool of interpreters. And a lot of the interpreters that they then had from that point on, at least early on in the pandemic, were paid about half of what I would normally get paid. And I know this because I talk to other interpreters, because I think it's important for us to know what we're making and that these companies aren't taking advantage of us. And I think that rubbed them the wrong way. So yeah, they made some pretty unfortunate and untrue claims. Honestly, had the pandemic not been going on at that time, I likely would have taken them to court for this. It was a little bit of a more complicated situation. There were other parties involved, but yeah, I likely, had it not been the pandemic and the courts weren't all jammed up, I honestly probably would have taken them to court for slander or libel because of what happened. But yeah, I lost about 86% of my business at the beginning. All that work that I had done to build up all those contracts just went away in the blink of an eye. And I actually started a Facebook group. If y'all know anything about me and my Facebook groups, I love my Facebook groups. But I started this group called Masks for Essential Retail, RVA. So I ran this group where we were donating cloth masks to people at the beginning of the pandemic, homemade cloth masks, oftentimes from bed sheets and hair ties and things like that, because you couldn't find any of these materials. You couldn't find disposable masks at the beginning of the pandemic. And a lot of these mask groups, because a lot of them were popping up, were focused on getting masks to healthcare workers, which I agree, that's important, and healthcare workers needed masks. But we also had a lot of essential workers out there. We had a lot of folks who, were working in grocery stores, pharmacies as cashiers, all these other places, working in construction and cleaning, things like that. And they didn't have anyone giving them masks, but they were still keeping everything running. And a disproportionate amount of those people working those, essential jobs outside of healthcare were people of color, and low income people, people who were Spanish speaking or spoke other languages, and there was no way for them to request things from these other mask groups. So I started that group, and I didn't work for a little while, actually. I was trying to get contracts together to work with remote interpreting agencies, but that was really tough at the time because a lot of these companies were, oh my goodness, including some companies that we now know didn't pay interpreters for their work during that time and still continue to not pay interpreters. We're offering, I'm talking about half the normal rates that they would offer an interpreter to interpret over the phone or over video. I did end up landing a contract with a couple of contracts with a couple of companies doing over the phone interpreting. And I'm not gonna lie, it was really traumatic for me. It was during the height of the pandemic. I don't remember if you all remember early on in the pandemic, especially up in the state of New York, they made headlines because they were putting bodies in freezer trucks. And that was around the time that I was interpreting remotely. And I was interviewed for one interpreting company where they asked me some very insensitive questions about some of the potentially traumatic things that I might be seeing and hearing, which really surprised me. And a lot of the providers that I interpreted for around that time over the phone, hardly ever on video, but over the phone, I had providers call me stupid. Like, listen, I know I'm a good interpreter, okay? Not to toot my own horn, not to brag or anything, but yeah, I had providers calling me stupid. I had providers screaming at me over the phone. I think they were just under so much stress and so much pressure, and they were just taking it out on us. And every day that I would interpret over the phone, I remember I would go, I'd go to the living room. I really like to play video games. I would go to the living room and I'd play Minecraft, and I'd sit there and I'd cry. I know it sounds really pathetic, but I would sit there and I would cry because it was rough. It was really rough. And then I started getting assignment offers again from some of the other companies I worked with as an in-person interpreter. And I think at that time I was one of only a handful. I mean, I would say I probably only knew like of 2 other interpreters who were actively going and interpreting in person at healthcare facilities during that time. Everyone was so scared, and most people were working remotely. Everyone was staying home. And I was just happy to be back in it. I was happy to go back. And sometimes I would go to these healthcare facilities and, they say, we have COVID positive patients and stuff like that. And I didn't have like a regular, you still couldn't get like N95s or any kind of respirator masks. And so I just used my cloth masks, and I would have goggles on. I'd put on 2 cloth masks, and I looked like I was in a freaking hazmat suit. It was ridiculous. And then I kind of settled in, and there's one clinic that I actually started going to about 3 to 5 times per day, 5 days a week. And it was a clinic for children receiving physical, occupational, and speech therapy. And I'm going to tell you all, those kids kept me going. Those kids kept me going. It was one of the most difficult times of my life, but at the same time, it was kind of like one of the most fulfilling and heartwarming times of my life. So I'm actually going to go back to my computer because I cannot see to show you my setup. I know I look kind of yellow, and it's because I had to change my lighting setup so you could actually see the Lego table. But let me see here. You got your first job as a remote interpreter, and you had to leave it since it gave so little work. It wasn't. Yeah, that happens. Like I said, I get contracts as an in-person interpreter sometimes where I get maybe 1 assignment from them a year. But then I kind of patch together all these contracts, and then through that process, I'm able to get enough assignments to kind of sustain me. Um, yeah, that's not uncommon for interpreting agencies, language service companies to not really care. It's not uncommon. It's really not uncommon, unfortunately. And not to say that there aren't good language service companies out there. It's just, some of them will really, they see you as a number and they see you as a way to make money, and they don't see you as the professional that you are. I got to count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I got to put one more. So yeah, I lost 86% of my business at the beginning of the pandemic. Went to do phone interpreting. That did not work out well. It's honestly, I'm still traumatized from it. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Like it was a really rough time. It was, like I said, the height of the pandemic, and people just, the patients, I've never had issues with the patients. I think I maybe had one patient over the phone who was a little snippy with me. But the providers, they were something else. It was really unfortunate. So I really empathize. I really gained respect for remote interpreters through that whole experience. And it really sucks that I had to go through a negative experience in order to appreciate the work that remote interpreters do. And it's so much harder to be a remote interpreter than an in-person interpreter. I feel privileged as an in-person interpreter because I can use all the tools in my toolbox. If I'm interpreting in person, I can interpret simultaneously as a medical interpreter. If you're an over-the-phone interpreter and you're interpreting through a platform for medical interpretation, it's not set up for simultaneous. And even if you render the perfect simultaneous interpretation, a lot of times the patient and the provider, let's say the patient is listening on the phone and the provider is joining from another device, they're going to hear the provider's voice and your voice at the same volume. So you could give the perfect interpretation, but the patient still wouldn't hear it, which is tough. So I use simultaneous a lot in person. I'm able to use like my customer service skills a lot more. They can see, my face, they can see my smiling face. And, I also think it's controversial kind of opinion here. I have often wondered if, because I'm white, I'm not Hispanic. Many of the interpreters who I know who are Spanish interpreters are Hispanic and, or Latinx. And I have heard from my interpreting colleagues who interpret in person that they are treated differently by some providers because of their race. And, I don't doubt that for a second, really. So I often wonder if perhaps maybe a contributing factor for, some of those negative experiences I had interpreting over the phone were because maybe I'm not used to the way that maybe people assumed that I wasn't white and took an issue with that, which is entirely a possibility. So yeah, major respect to remote interpreters, because I know, and I've even heard from some remote interpreters that they have more issues with people with LEP than with the English speakers themselves, which that to me is really interesting. And I wonder why that might be, because even when I was interpreting over the phone, short of a time as it may have been, it wasn't, I think I had one patient who was a little snippy, but they were snippy with the provider too. And I've never, as an in-person interpreter, I think I've only ever had one issue with a patient once. And they legitimately did not want me to interpret for them because I was American, which listen, let's be real here. it's really unfortunate that, we are in such a diverse country and there are still people out there who have an issue with that. So I can completely understand why, based on, maybe past experiences, why someone might be wary or hesitant to have someone who is American interpret for them. I certainly can't blame that person for feeling that way. So I just brushed it off and just kind of let it be. Yeah. So since the pandemic, it's changed a little bit. I'm not interpreting as often for the kiddos as I was during the pandemic, which, to be completely honest, it's a little sad. I miss the kiddos. Many of the kiddos have grown and moved on. But something really interesting I started noticing during the pandemic. I was following with a lot of the same patients. And even if you maintain your boundaries and you really, really stick to your role of the interpreter, there's still entirely that possibility that you're going to feel a sense of connection, especially with kids. Oh my goodness. If you love kids like I do, it's really tough. I mean, some of the kiddos I interpreted for would end up in the hospital, and as an independent contractor, I'm not in the loop about that. No one really tells me these things. I just get a cancellation notice for an appointment, and then I'm left wondering. And I did end up finding out that one of the kiddos I interpreted for was very, very ill, and it really impacted me. And I began to realize that you can respect your boundaries as an interpreter. You can keep your distance and everything and follow protocol, and you can still feel that sense of attachment, and you can still have potentially some impartiality issues. That was just a kind of an interesting observation. Like, I feel like a lot of remote interpreters, I hear them say, that they wish they knew what happened. They wish they could follow with the same patients. They wish this, they wish that. And I wish that a lot too when I was interpreting over the phone. But then when you actually end up being able to follow with the same patients for long periods of time, it really hits your heart. It really has an effect on you. And that was kind of scary for me. I honestly thought, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad interpreter. How many times do we tell ourselves this as interpreters? I'm such a bad interpreter. When you make a minor mistake, or sometimes you don't even make a mistake at all, and you convince yourself that, oh, you're a bad interpreter, XYZ. So yes, I managed to convince myself of that very, what the heck is going on here? I see we have another comment. There are many expressions in our language, depending upon where you come from, and things that perhaps in Argentina mean one thing, in other places they mean another. Yeah, so in Spanish, definitely, I'm assuming you say, yeah, if Argentina, yeah, I'm assuming Spanish. Definitely, that's probably been one of the hardest parts for me with learning Spanish, is the regionalisms. Is, okay, well, in this country, baby bottle is pacha, but in this country, baby bottle is biberon. But then some people here call it like tetera, some people call it, other thing, or drinking straw. Popote, sorbete, calimete, sorbeto, like so many different ways to say these things. That was an area that I was really behind in studying Spanish in college. I focused heavily on the medical stuff. Yeah, that's so true. The trouble with people with LEP, at least as a Spanish interpreter, is the accent and the cultural expressions. Oh, thank you, Marcos. I wouldn't say my Spanish is perfect, but it's a thing. And you can, after the live is over, it will actually record. So it'll be recorded and posted to the channel. So if you missed the part where I was actually talking about learning Spanish and how I learned Spanish, you get to hear that part too. So yeah. Shoot, I thought I was going to write a list of things I was going to talk about, but now I kind of don't know, because I've talked about how I became an interpreter. These days, I would say I'm interpreting less than I have been in the past, and a big part of that is because I also teach as a medical interpreter. I teach an introductory medical interpreter training course. Definitely not the same as the college course that I took to get my training as an interpreter. But I definitely still incorporate a lot of the things that I learned from my teachers into my classes. And I also manage a lot of online communities for interpreters, which some of you may or may not know. I have YouTube groups, Facebook groups. And this was actually something that was really interesting during the pandemic, was the Facebook groups. People think, oh yeah, managing a Facebook group, no big deal. It's just a small thing. No, you would be so surprised. Where the fudge does this go? I have no idea where this goes. Does it go on those things? Where does it go? Can you tell me where these things go? Holy guacamole. It's like behind. Like, how am I supposed to tell where this goes? How am I supposed to tell where that goes? Where these things go? It's like hidden behind other pieces. What the heck? Normally Lego's pretty good about showing you how to put things together, but this is new, especially for someone who, like, I am used to putting together Lego sets, but maybe that is it. Maybe it does go there. Does it go there? Oh yeah, because this goes back like this. Oh gosh, this is like an IQ test right now. I think maybe I didn't bend these the way I was supposed to. Okay. Wait a second. Okay, so this one goes like this. Okay, I see. All right, I think I'm getting it. Oh my gosh. So this goes here. Yes. Okay, I'm getting it. It's happening. It's happening, people. We're finally getting something coming together. It only took 3 hours of Kelly talking. No, it's only been an hour and 22 minutes. But to be fair, the first 5 minutes, I was having technical difficulties. Where was I? Fudge. So I was talking about the interpreter training program I train with. I teach with Americans Against Language Barriers. Very, very. I really do love teaching with AALB. And I feel like being an interpreter trainer, has made me a better interpreter. Because now, oh my goodness gracious, now, if you ask me about any of the medical interpreting ethical principles, if you ask me about anything related to anything that they cover on the certification exams, and I forgot to talk about when I got certified as an interpreter. But if you ask me about anything that's on any of the medical interpreter certification exams, we basically teach from the curriculum set forth by, I believe it is IMEA. We cover all of that stuff in our training extensively. And I really do feel like being an interpreter trainer has helped me become a better interpreter. But I became certified in, I think 2018. Because, yeah, I just renewed my NBCMI certification. I think I became certified in 2018, I believe. And that was while I was still working at the Safety Net Clinic. And I wanted to get certified from the moment I graduated my interpretation um, program in college. But I was scared. You remember that thing that I was talking about earlier on? Well, if you were here, maybe you remember. If not, I was talking a little bit earlier about how even I had over 400 hours of training in my interpreter training program in college. And I still did not feel like I was ready to interpret when I graduated. I felt like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this, like I'm not good enough. And I gradually felt better about that. I felt, ready to explore getting certified. And I ended up deciding to go with the National Board of Certification for Medical Interpreters, simply because I had to renew it every 5 years instead of every 4 years. I was being cheap. That's the reason why I went with NBCMI. And I ended up, the written exam for NBCMI took me 11 minutes. It was literally everything that a lot of it came from my clinical experience working in the clinic. And I was actively working in the clinic at that time. And so it really, really helped me, I think, to be able to pass that exam. I got like a 92%, and it took me like 11 or 12 minutes or something like that. Then I took the oral exam. And I waited forever to take the oral exam, and it was because I was anxious. I was so anxious. I shouldn't have waited. I should have just taken it as soon as I could have. And I took the oral exam. I passed it. It took forever to figure out that I passed. I was actually working in the store that I was working in because I had since actually quit my job at the clinic. And yeah, we got it on camera, on the security cameras. I was freaking out. I jumped out of it because I checked my email in the office, and I jumped out of the chair, and I was so excited. I was a certified medical interpreter. And then during the pandemic is when I got my CCHI certification. And the reason why I did that was because I felt like everything that was happening was telling me that interpreting wasn't going to happen for me. Everything was trying to tear me away from interpretation. And then I was like, you know what? Screw you, universe. I'm still going to interpret. And so I was like, I'm going to get certified by CCHI too. And I ended up getting certified by CCHI. I will say the written exam with CCHI was way harder than the written exam with NBCMI. I'm just going to put that out there. But I passed it. And I became a dual certified medical interpreter. Gosh, I don't even remember when now. Like 2 years ago, I think. And I felt like that really helped me and informed me as an interpreter trainer as well. So I think at this point, does anyone really want to hear me talk anymore? If anyone has any questions or anything that they'd like me to address while I'm here, now is an excellent time to do that. And I'm sorry my hands are all beat up. I have a 5-month-old kitten. So he's a real handful. But I think I'm going to focus. I think if I focus on this, I can get this done really quickly. That's what I think. I think this is what's going to happen. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's see where this bad boy goes. So, I think I have to. What? Okay. You all are witnessing something very, very rare. Kelly being quiet. See, it doesn't last for too long though, but my husband actually came with me to an interpreting conference earlier this year. We're not in 2024 yet. Bring the kitten. Potentially. I'm kind of afraid to have him around the Legos. He's been jumping up on a lot of counters and things lately. He has been a bad boy. Yes, he is a boy. Cheeto. Come here, baby. Well, my kitten's name is Shiro. It means white in Japanese, but its full name is Shirohige, which is from the anime One Piece, which we watch as a family. He is the family cat. Shiro. Come here, baby muffins. Oh, I hear him. Come here, baby. I think he'll make it in here. Hi, baby muffins. Hi, sweetie pie. All right. Come here, baby muffins. Come here, baby boy. Come here. Come here. Come here. All right. Oh, here he is. He's a baby boy. Yes. Okay. Yes, he is almost 6 months old now. Hi, baby muffins. What are you doing? Oh, you don't want to. He doesn't want to be on camera. He likes to get on people's shoulders, though. Okay. Gotta respect his space. He's gonna go eat some food in my office. Or maybe not. He's just gonna leave. He's gonna go leave and terrorize the rest of the world. That is my rug that I pulled out of my office. Because I am not gonna be able to slide around all over this floor, going back and forth from one desk to another, if that rug is here in my office. He's just staring at me begrudgingly now. Typical cat. I think I mentioned before that I took my husband to an interpreting conference in Charlotte, North Carolina earlier this year. And he led me to believe that it was one of the worst experiences in his life. And so I wanted to go back to the conference this year. And I just decided to make plans to go without him because I didn't want to torture him. Because when he went to the conference last year and he told his friends about, having gone to an interpreting conference with me, he said, imagine you get a couple hundred people together who talk for a living and put them in a room together. So all that to say, we interpreters, we have a reputation for talking a lot. So if I go silent during this live stream, no, that is a very, very rare moment in history. All right. Getting the stuff together. Doing the things. Okay. How does this go? It goes like this. All right. So then we're going to do... I don't know how these people who have Lego YouTube channels do it. Get all up close. They have to have some really nice cameras. Mine looks like a potato. I'm sorry. This is a potato quality camera. This is actually my stepson's camera from his computer that he used during the pandemic when he had online school. Oh, so now I get to put on one of these things. They look like little ice creams. Look, it's like a little ice cream. You can't really see it, but we'll pretend that you see it. So yes, I stole my stepson. He's 13. I stole his camera because I am a monster. I also stole his USB extender because I could not reach this camera all the way over here without something to extend it. So this live stream was a way for me to, one, answer the question, Kelly, how the heck did you learn Spanish? How the heck did you become a medical interpreter? And also to test out the dual camera setup because I eventually want to do some stuff with the dual camera setup. But also because I wanted an opportunity to wear this cool new robe that my mother-in-law got me, even though you can't really see it on camera. And also to put together this Lego set. Man, this thing has taken me way longer than I thought it would. And what's funny is I actually brought another Lego set in here thinking I was going to talk so much that I would have so much time, that I would need so much time to talk and cover the story. Let us see. So we got the straight one. Okay, straight. And now we have to add another bendy one. And there's all sorts of bends and twists to this thing. Okay. The bendy one bends this way. I have to literally hold it up to the book the way that it is in the book in order to understand it completely. All right. Yeah. Oh, another bendy one. Okay. Tell you what, if you want some interpreting practice, you can interpret simultaneously or consecutively over everything that I'm doing. This video might literally end up being a video of me going for another like 45 minutes just putting together a Lego set. And I just lost a Lego piece behind the desk. Hopefully I have an extra one here somewhere. If not, I might need to run up to my stepson's room. But Legos have actually been a big thing in my whole life. I've always loved Legos. I'm not sure if you all grew up with Legos. I actually didn't really have Legos in the beginning growing up. But what I would do is I would save change. My mom would make me help with laundry, and so I'd find loose change in the laundry, and I'd save all the loose change in the laundry. And then every once in a while, I would, just pick up loose change that I found around the house. I would do chores. I'd save my chore money. I'd save my, I don't think I got money for chores. It was only like special chores. Like my mom every year would get me to help her wrap Christmas presents. I'm a really good Christmas present wrapper. Oh no, I missed one, I think. I missed one because it's supposed to be like that. And then it goes like that. And then it goes like that. And then it goes like that. But yeah, so what I would do is I would save up all the little bits of money that I had. And I would actually buy myself things. I would buy the big Lego sets. And I don't think they have it anymore, but Lego magazine. I would get the Lego magazines and I'd save up money and I'd buy like little bits and bobs out of the Lego magazines. And slowly but surely, over the years, I began accumulating quite the collection of Legos. And then when I was about 10, my mom had my brother. And my brother inherited my Legos. And he continued living with my parents. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay. He inherited my Legos. He was living with my parents. And he would add his Lego sets that he would get for holidays and birthdays and stuff like that to the collective mass of Legos that we had amassed. And then my brother got older. And those Legos just kind of stayed with my mom. My parents ended up getting divorced, which is fine. It needed to happen, y'all. And then I met my husband in college. And my husband already had a son. We ended up getting married and moving in together. And I had told him from the get-go, when we first started dating, that I had literal pounds. I had weighed at one point. It was 36 pounds of Legos. that between myself and my brother, we had accumulated over the years. And that I did not feel comfortable giving those Legos, which to me, that's like a family heirloom, those Legos. Did not feel comfortable giving them to my, at the time, boyfriend's son, unless we got married. Because I'm going to tell you this, I want my kids to inherit my Legos. And I didn't want them to, because if I gave them to my, at the time, boyfriend's son, and then we ended up breaking up, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking those Legos from that kid. Right? I would have to leave the Legos with my ex's son. So I decided, you know what? Once we get married, the Legos can become his Legos. And that's what happened. Got married, and the Legos became my stepson's Legos. And we actually have, my mother-in-law had an old dresser at her house, and it was quite I'll be honest with you, it was quite an ugly thing. It was like white, but the drawers and the handles were blue. It was not very pretty. And what I did was I actually refurbished that dresser. I painted the whole dresser black. I don't know if you all know this, but Kelly actually likes black, everything black. And including my husband. And I painted the whole dresser black, and I painted the handles of the dresser, which were wood, the different colors of the different Legos. So we have like red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And so each drawer of that dresser up in my stepson's room contains different colors of Legos. So they're all color coded, so he can find all the Legos he needs. And on top of that, he has another big drawer with 2 big drawers full of Legos. He has a bunch of little drawers with all the little Legos split up. So we have plenty of Legos in this house. So many Legos. Yet every Christmas, people buy us Lego sets. Oh, never mind. I wasn't supposed to put the green bit on there. I was supposed to put one of the little ice cream swirly things. Come here, ice cream swirly thing. Yes, the Legos. I bribed my then boyfriend to become my husband with Legos. That's how it worked. It was a Legos. It wasn't my personality. It wasn't my excellent, fantastic conversation skills. It wasn't my ability to speak Spanish. None of those things. It was the Legos that did it in for him. No. And it's really funny because my stepson asked my husband the other day how we ended up getting married, because we're 2 very, very different people. He's like, how can two people so opposite end up getting married? And I said to him, well, it's like they say. Have you ever heard that saying, opposites attract? And he was like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. It was the Legos. That's what it was. The Legos. The Legos bring all people together. All right. Believe it or not, we're actually through most of this book. Yeah, a lot of this is just, oh my gosh, do I really have this much more to do? It's like when you're like 2 hours into an 8-hour interpreting shift, and you're like, oh my gosh, how much time has gone by? And you're like, only 2 hours. No, I get those too. I know a lot of over-the-phone interpreters. You get those long shifts where you're working for like 8, sometimes 10, 6, 8, 10 hours, sometimes up to 12 hours, back to back calls. So unfair that they do that to y'all. But I'm going to tell you this. As an in-person interpreter, I've definitely had interpreting shifts where I've worked for my longest interpreting shift ever, working as a contractor. I was at a hospital for 14 hours. 14 hours. It was originally supposed to be like 4 hours, but it ended up turning into 14 hours. Of course, I wasn't spending that whole time interpreting, thankfully. But it was rough, and it was because an emergency happens. And, getting another interpreter there, or even using a remote interpreter, because the issue is in some areas of a lot of hospitals are like dead zones. You get no signal. So you can't bring in your little interpreting cart. You can't bring in your, little cell phone that you would use to interpret. And a lot of these hospitals don't have like regular like landline phones or regular phones in a lot of these places anymore. So it's really rough. And that's kind of the situation that we landed in, was this patient. It was an unexpected emergency situation. And I could choose to leave, but at the time I was like, I ain't losing that money. But also, what's going to happen to this interpreter? Oh my goodness. A friend of yours was on an 8-hour interpreting call. And when he finished, she automatically went to sleep. That's what happened after that 14-hour day. I'm pretty sure I had to cancel my next day's assignment. I think the next day I had like one interpreting assignment, and I was like, you know what? It's late enough on in the day. I'm just going to go to sleep and just sleep until like an hour before that appointment. And it's rough. That's the thing that a lot of people don't get about interpreting, is it's so, you're using your brain so much, and it's exhausting. And so, I mean, I am really grateful that my schedule these days is very broken up. Like I might have an interpreting assignment, and then I'll have, I'll have some work to do in my office, and then I'll have another interpreting assignment, and then I'll have more work to do in my office. And so my day is kind of broken up like that. But even if I had straight back to back to back interpreting assignments, as an in-person interpreter, I gotta drive there. So that to me is like a break. You're driving there, you're giving your brain a rest. You're not handling all that linguistic information. But yeah, I do not envy the interpreters that take back to back to back calls. And honestly, I think it's unethical of these companies to have an entire business model prefaced on that. I mean, a lot of these companies, their entire business model is prefaced on exploitation. I did it again. I put the green thing instead of the fluffy pink thing. And that's just, it's not right. Let's see here. That works. We're working on it. So yeah, hey, if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. If it's related to interpretation, if you're asking me how to get interpreting jobs, I have a lot of people ask me those questions. I'm not the best person to ask about getting remote interpreting jobs. I'm just not going to have the best or the most, up-to-date information on that. I will say that I have a Facebook group called U.S. Medical Interpreters that I'm a moderator of. And in that group, we actually do a monthly job post, meaning that any jobs that anyone finds out about during that month, any job openings that still remain from the previous month, they stay in that job post. So there's literally a huge, huge, huge thread of interpreting jobs, remote interpreting jobs, in-person interpreting jobs, all over the United States. Big list of them in the group U.S. Medical Interpreters. If you do join that group, though, please, 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 for the love of everything that is holy, please answer all membership questions completely when requesting to join the group. Because what happens a lot of times is people will join the group and not answer any of the membership questions. And you have to answer the questions. And it's not because I'm being mean. It's because, unfortunately, on Facebook particularly, there's a big issue with bots. And the only way that I don't know that you're a bot or someone who is literally going to come into the group and post about medical supplies is if you answer the questions. Okay. So it looks like this goes this way. And then this goes like this. Hey! It's starting to look like an actual plant thing now. Look at that. Where are the flowers? I need the flowers. Okay. Oh my gosh, there's another little branchy thing. What is going on here? Okay. How many little branchy things do you need? And the whole reason why I'm building this, just a reminder, I'm going to bring over the reminder. Actually, I'm going to go on the other camera and I'm going to show you the reminder of exactly why I'm building this Lego set. because this is the last plant I had in my office. Look at this thing. Look how dry it is. That's like, it's like a little desert. I have a little desert in my office. Okay. Yeah, totally. Always practice. All right, let's go back to the side cam. I'm going to go back to the desk. I'm surprised my chair hasn't been as squeaky as it has been. And so my English, just to kind of give you some perspective on my English, because a lot of people think that English is just one monolithic language and there's no like differences between English, but there are so many different types of English. So my mom's side of the family is from England. I don't have an English accent. My mother doesn't have an English accent. My mom actually, when she was first going to school here in the United States, they put her in speech therapy because of her accent. So that's the reason why my mom and her sister, and all my mom's siblings, they don't have an accent. They went to school. They grew up here, in the United States. They, I think like my mom was like 8. Grew up in the United States, went to school in the United States. And yeah, the back in the day, people felt very differently about language and accents. So my mother does not have an English accent. My grandmother, though, lives in here in the United States. She lives in the country where I grew up. Not where I grew up, but I grew up in the country, but in a different part of Virginia. And she definitely has remnants of her accent. But my dad's side of the family is from New England, so like northeastern United States. But I grew up in central Virginia, in the middle of nowhere in the country. So most people that I went to school with, a lot of people I went to school with had country accents. I can definitely do a country accent if I try. I would say that my English, I have a little bit of a twang when I speak English. I like to think my English is pretty neutral, but I do tend to slur my words sometimes. And I do tend to use a lot of slang, a lot of, I like to use a lot of like internet meme jokes and things like that when I'm talking. So now where the heck is this thing? I can't find it. Oh, it's right here. It's blending in. That's what the problem is. I think we had another person, someone asking a question or something. Let me see here. Hey, my name is Chair, and I say squeak, squeak. There you go. There's my country accent. It's actually really funny because my brother, he's 10 years younger than me. He actually lives with us at our house with me and my husband and my stepson. And when he was little, for whatever reason, he didn't have an accent when he was little. But whenever he would say the word stairs, he wouldn't say stairs. He'd say stairs, stairs. So that's still a joke that we still pick on him about that to this day. He's in his 20s now. We're so kind. I did do the country accent. I'm a chair. Hi, my name's Kelly, and I'm from the country. There you go. There's a country accent. That's about the best I got for you. I can also do an English accent, but it doesn't sound very good. So that's kind of like my English language background. I was always very much encouraged at home to not have that accent. I mean, I wouldn't say it was overtly encouraged, but I do remember like being corrected and things like that. If I did, I imagine my parents wanted me to speak more like them, right? But yeah, a lot of the people I went to school with, had more country accents. I definitely, there was one kid in my school growing up. If any of you have seen King of the Hill, okay, so the country accent's funny. All right, now I'm never doing it again. Growing up and going to school, there was this one kid, and if you've ever seen King of the Hill, he talks just like Boomhauer from King of the Hill. So Boomhauer would be like, yeah, so what is it? How that's in the house. That would be how Boomhauer would talk. And this kid would talk. I could not understand what this kid said. I could not. But yeah, in Virginia, the state that I'm located in, we have cities, and then pretty much the rest of Virginia is country. And so in the cities, you have a lot of diversity. Not all of the cities, but a lot of the cities. You have a lot of diversity, linguistically, culturally. But in the country, if there is diversity, at least when I grew up in the country, if there is diversity, you don't really know about it. It's very white, very, a lot of people have in the country areas very thick country accents, depending upon your definition of a thick country accent. But for factors that I cannot quite explain, I never really picked up that accent. Oh my gosh, what is going on? What is this? Oh my gosh, I'm making leaves, I guess. Okay. How do leaves work? What? Huh? Oh, okay, so this and this. Oh, I did two. Okay, two of these. Okay, so what is this? It just makes it look like it's two pieces. See, this is the problem. It makes this look like two pieces instead of one. Okay. Well, if you have any questions about English, I'm a good person to ask. Not about English grammar, I'll tell you that. So here's the thing, is that when you're a native speaker of a language, and maybe you relate to this with your native language, I find that as a native speaker of English, I have a really hard time explaining grammar concepts. But if you ask me about anything in Spanish related to grammar, I'm pretty good with Spanish grammar. I can explain to you in English and in Spanish a particular grammar concept. I can do it. It can happen. But in English, I have a hard time with the grammar. I really do. I mean, I just know it sounds right. I don't know how to explain why it is right. And you know what I've been doing lately? I was actually working on a project with someone, and we had encountered some quirks in English, like some weird things about English that were coming up in our translation project together. And I knew it made sense, and I knew what it meant in English, but I couldn't explain why it was written the way it was and still correct. So what I did was, y'all are going to judge me, but I went to ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT to explain to me why that particular thing in English was the way it was. And it actually did a surprisingly good job. So one of the examples was, let's see if this doesn't help your illness, right? Let's see if this doesn't help. You would think, let's see if this doesn't help would be negative. But I know as a native English speaker that it means it's positive, that, this thing is going to help. It's just a matter of how much it's going to help. And so I put that into ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT why it wasn't negative. And it gave me a pretty solid answer that I cannot remember or recall at this moment. So if you need help with English grammar, ChatGPT might be able to at least give you a better direction. Because listen, how do you search for that on Google? How do you search for that? It's not going to turn up very many results. Oh my gosh, we're adding the leaves. Look at us. The leaves, they're being added. It's happening. It's finally happening. Okay, the leaves. Oh, that's what these are for. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this goes, all right, let's do this. This goes right here. If it'll go on, geez Louise. See, and that's the other great thing about listening to me speak English is I use so many random sayings and things. And that's something that I only noticed once I started, learning Spanish and interpreting, is just how much of those sayings that we use. Holy guacamole. Okay. Yeah, see, there's another one. Geez Louise, holy guacamole. There's your English education for the day. They're just exclamations. Okay, come on. Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be very fragile. So good thing it's going to go up high where no one can get to it. Okay. Oh, you can really move these bad boys around. Okay. Oh, I put on the wrong one. Okay, I'm going to have to pull this out. Oh, no. Ow. Gosh, that is hard to get off. Well, why am I taking it off? I'll just put it on the other one. That's what's going to happen. Improvise and adapt. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Wait, isn't that from Bear Grylls, the guy who drinks his own, his own urine? I didn't say that. All right, so what do we have here? Well, the thing is that here, normally the companies that hire you to interpret require you to have almost perfect grammar. So I'm working hard to assimilate the rules of another language. Yes, English grammar is so hard. And I think that's part of the issue with me and for me is that I've memorized all the grammar rules. And the thing is English doesn't really have rules. Like in Spanish, an irregular verb in Spanish isn't really irregular at all. No, it's oftentimes it has a different spelling to preserve the sound. Like the verb jugar, to play. If you want to say past tense, like I played, you don't say jugué, because then the G becomes soft. So you add the U to make the G hard. Jugué, right? So that makes sense. It's not really an irregular verb if you think about it. It's just to preserve that sound of the G. But in English, I'm like, why is it, wait. I got to go through my Spanish, pronouns and see what it would be in English. So, I am, you are, he is, she is, they are. Why is they are and we are and you are? Why are those the same? Makes no sense to me. Makes no freaking sense. English, I really, sometimes I interpret for people. Sometimes I interpret for people and they are ashamed. They are ashamed that they don't know English. And I feel so horribly bad when people feel that way. I've had conversations with people before outside of interpreting where I tell them, I used to teach actually English classes at a local community center. And I would tell my students, English makes no sense. English makes no sense. You just need to practice it. And you should not feel bad because I, the gringa, speak Spanish. No, because Spanish is easy. French was my second language. I really, really used my knowledge in French to learn Spanish grammar because the grammar concepts are so similar. But yeah, English is rough. I am so incredibly lucky to have been born speaking English. Now, I mean, I wasn't born speaking English, but born in a country where we speak English because then I don't have to worry about really having to struggle to learn it. Oh, well, bag 4 is already open because I got a little too far ahead of myself earlier on. And it looks like this is the final bag. The final bag is going in the trash. And now I'm going to put the instructions up here. Sorry if you already answered this, but what is something that you don't understand in Spanish or doesn't make sense to you? Huh, that's a really good question. Oh, these are cute. These are normally used as shields for little Lego guys. You know, I can't really say that there's a whole lot in Spanish that leaves me scratching my head. I feel like Spanish pretty much makes sense to me. I think one of my biggest difficulties when I first started was the difference between por and para. But I pretty much have that down now because in English we only have for. But you can also use like yeah, that I pretty much understand. The subjunctive sometimes catches me off guard. But again, this is where my college interpretation and translation program really helped me out, because before we even started with the interpreting stuff, I can't even get this bloody thing open. Oh wait, no, I got it. Before we even started going into like interpreting, we did a really heavy grammar review in Spanish, and it was a comparative grammar review between English and Spanish. And we had 3 different ways that the subjunctive was explained to us in a textbook. And I actually really liked that it was explained to us in 3 different ways, because a lot of times what happens when you get grammar concepts explained to you is you get them explained to you in one way, and if you don't get it, too bad. They just repeat to you the same exact way that, oh, this is cool. They're using the heads and they're using the helmets. That's cool that they're repurposing these Lego pieces like this. But we have this textbook where it explained to us 3 different ways that English speakers had kind of reasoned out the subjunctive. And I forget exactly which one of those explanations really, really hit it home for me and really helped me understand. But this is why when I teach my classes to medical interpreters who are learning how to interpret, I sometimes will show them complex concepts in a couple of different ways, at least 2 different ways. That way, if the first way I explain it to them just isn't the best way for them to learn about it, at least that maybe that second or even that third way of having that thing explained helps. So, and actually I have that book. Oh, where am I going? Oh my God. Okay. So this goes this way. I'm just going to, all right. I'm making noises now. All right. So this goes here. Bam. This goes here. Okay. Now I see someone said something in the chat. I'm a non-native English speaker and I teach English. And let me tell you, English grammar is much, much easier than Russian, for example. English is the easiest language. Listen. Spanish grammar. Spanish grammar makes so much sense. So much sense. I love the Spanish language, really, because the grammar just makes so much sense. Yes, there are all those verb conjugations, but they all make sense. English, maybe it's just because I haven't been taught the rules of English, and I also, I know a lot of people really struggle with English. And so, yeah, I try to be empathetic with people who struggle with learning English, because listen, like I said earlier, like if you ask me to explain a grammar concept in English, I really struggle with it. I really do, because the last time I had an English lesson was like in like middle school, I think, a comprehensive English lesson. So, oh, this is cool. Oh, that's my brother. Hi, brother. I'm doing a live stream of me putting together a Lego set. He doesn't want to be on my live stream. He's too cool for YouTube. Yeah, it's a live stream. I'm doing a live stream. Yeah. I'm just talking about, first I talked about how I learned Spanish and how I became a medical interpreter. And then I kind of ran out of stuff to talk about. So now I'm kind of talking about random things related to interpreting.
Oh, okay. So it's like, okay, so it's related to you.
Yeah, it's related to interpreting, Kyle.
Guess how many times I got called a lumberjack today, Kelly?
I don't know. Apparently people were calling my brother a lumberjack a lot today. Let's see here. We're on the last bag, y'all. This is going to happen. I didn't like to use the word y'all for the longest time. And it was kind of like I really didn't like growing up in the country. I really did not like it. It was not a pleasant experience. People were not very nice. A lot of the people, I had to cut contact with a lot of people I grew up with because they were incredibly racist. I'm not going to lie. That's just kind of how it was for me growing up in the country. And I really didn't like it, especially, being a person who I've dedicated my life to serving the immigrant community. When people, it's very difficult for me to continue to have people in my life who are xenophobic and anti-immigrant. And so for me, y'all is a very country thing. But I actually began to appreciate it more as I interpreted, because I started realizing everyone had all these unique kind of linguistic quirks. That is my cat. He is very upset. Look at this. This is a little Lego fork. And I'm going to be using this. It's very creative the way they do these sets. But yeah, I began to notice, whenever I would talk to other interpreters, that there were all these unique linguistic quirks in their languages, or very particular like regional expressions related to where they're from. Oh my goodness, my favorite flavor of Spanish is Mexican Spanish. I love Mexican Spanish. It is so fun. It is just so colorful. And I said to myself, I was like, well, what are the same like colorful things in the English language? What are these colorful things that I have linguistically going on? And I really didn't come up with a lot. And I started realizing, why do I have such a hesitance in saying y'all? Like, yes, yeah, it's kind of a country thing, but it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. And so I actually started more purposefully including y'all in my vocabulary after I became an interpreter, because I began to appreciate it more. It's kind of like one of those, a regionalism. It's like a linguistic quirk. And even if, I haven't historically used it, it's part of who I am. So, and just like, I say bloody a lot, because that was something growing up. My mom and my nana, because of their English background, everything was bloody this, bloody that, which is actually kind of like a little offensive. It's a little rude, but I did it the wrong way. No, Kelly, why? Okay, I got it stuck. See, maybe if I didn't get these things stuck, I would already have this set done by now. I'm just taking too long getting things stuck. Man, I really thought this live stream was only going to take like an hour. And here I am like 2 hours on. I should be ashamed of myself. All right. Oh my. It is very strange for me to hear about the numerous problems of racism that Americans go through, because here in Argentina, one of the few things we handle well is cultural differences. Yeah, it's a real struggle. Obviously I'm white. I don't experience those things personally, but I witness them. Um, I my husband is not white, and it was honestly very surprising to me when I got married. Uh, kind of even people who I was friends with uh, reacted to uh, it kind of came out of the woodwork. Um, and I saw a lot of things, growing up, and heard a lot of things from adults in positions of power, like my teachers and, even like principals and people in positions of power saying and doing things that were incredibly, incredibly racist. So, yeah, it's a problem. It is a problem. And I can't pretend to know what to do about it. So I just try to do what I can by continuing to serve the role that I serve. I feel like I'm being an interpreter and providing linguistic access to people who, uh, are very often, unfortunately discriminated against is probably one of the best things that I'm equipped to do to address that. Not to say that's all I should do, but I'm really struggling with this one. These little pieces are really tricky. I did it backwards. Not this one, but one of the last one that I did. These are tough. Okay. So this goes here. Okay. This needs to get taken. Oh my goodness gracious. This is so fiddly. It's like little fiddly pieces. All right. I'll be honest though, like some of the most overt racism that I have seen here has been within the healthcare system. Like some of the ways that these providers treat patients is really scary. Really, really scary. And very uncomfortable. And sometimes I wonder what happens when an interpreter isn't there, and that's what really scared me during the pandemic was a lot of these places switched to over the phone interpreting, which great, you're still providing interpretation, but as an in-person interpreter going to these healthcare facilities, I see things that, and a remote interpreter isn't going to see, because I'm there with the patient from the moment they arrive to the healthcare facility to the moment that they leave. And so, yeah, I've seen some really shady situations play out with patients, and it's kind of scary. Um, it makes me wonder why some people get into healthcare, because there are some people out there who, oh my gosh, I messed it up. No, that one's supposed to be that way. Ah, no. I am so confused. Okay, so this is like this. All right, so that's like that. Okay, so it is supposed to be the fat part at the bottom. Oh my goodness. Okay, fat part is at the bottom. Got it. Good. Gonna do that. These parts are just so tiny and fiddly. Holy guacamole. Okay. So that goes there. No, not that way. Ah. Oh my God, this is only the first flower. We're going to be here all day, y'all. It's going to happen. Kelly's going to be here all day doing this Lego set. Was not expecting this. They need to put like a difficulty level on the front of this thing. Warning, it has small fiddly pieces and will take you all day. Because that's what's about to happen here. Okay. Oh my God, I put it on backwards again. Oh my God, no. It came apart. Ah. Et voila. An orchid. It's so pretty. So, oh my gosh, I have to do 6 of these. Holy crap. That means I have to do, so 6 times 3, but I only have 2 more. Wait, no. 5 times 6. I have 15 more of those to do. Okay. We're just going to start an assembly line. I'm going to pull all these out. I got to do 15 of these. All right, let's do 15. Come on, here we go. It's just going to happen. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Where is it? Oh, I know it is 15. 2. It had to be 15. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Got 15. Okay. You are very patient. I would have taken a break at this point. It's not that I'm patient. It's that I'm determined. I'm very stubborn. That's my problem. I'm far too stubborn for my own good. All right. So I think what I'm going to do when I finish this video is I'm going to play the parts, have the parts audible where I am explaining my journey interpreting, maybe speed up through the parts where I'm just struggling and do kind of like a time lapse almost. I think that'd be really cool. And you know, that's actually something really interesting that I started doing during the pandemic was I started my YouTube channel, and it was because so many people were out of work and they were worried that without practice, their interpreting skills would, you know, kind of vanish or get worse. And so that's why I started creating these practice materials on my YouTube channel. So people could have just free practice. And I didn't have a whole lot of work at that time either. I didn't really have much to do. And so I wanted to do something useful for the interpreting community. And ever since then, you know, my YouTube channel has been, oh my goodness gracious. It's really amazing. I'm going to count real quick. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. It's really amazing. I've actually gotten work because of my YouTube channel. I've gotten invited to present for webinars because something that I didn't even realize was going to happen is because I have so much educational materials on my YouTube, you essentially get to see my teaching style, which is kind of fun and kind of quirky. I like to use lots of memes, lots of jokes, and just be generally silly about things. That is literally why I'm sitting here today putting together a Lego set in a robe in my PJs. 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15. Okay, here we go. We're going to do the assembly. We're going to do the assembly line here. All right, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do all these little fiddlies, and it's going to happen really quick, okay? You're going to be so impressed. So it needs to be at the fat end. The clippy part needs to be at the fat end. So we're just going to do boop. And that is my kitten yelling. I think, oh my gosh. There it goes. 1 of 15. Done. Oh gosh. Oh no. What have I done to myself? Come on. Maybe after I do it more, I'll develop a kind of like technique and get faster at it. What do you think? All right, we got 2. It's going to happen. All right. We got 3. Now, oh, watch, I'm going to do all of these wrong. I'm just double checking, making sure I did them correctly, following the instructions in the book. Yes, I did. Okay. No, the clippy part has to be at the fat end. So you literally, this is what you're doing. You're taking these little shield bits and you're sliding, you can't really even see, and you're sliding this little, it's a fork. It's literally a Lego fork, like for little Lego people. And then you have to get this little thing. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's 4. Okay, I'm moving this out of the way. We got 4 out of 15. Oh my gosh. I told myself I wouldn't work today, but this feels a lot like work. Don't ask me what my New Year's plans are. Oh, cool. You and your friend are starting a YouTube channel to help people practice or improve their acting skills. I would like to give it some twists so that it's not similar to others. You know, interpreting has a lot to do with acting. I know I keep on coming back to interpreting, but this is my interpreting YouTube channel. I feel like interpreting and acting have a lot in common. Because, okay, so when we're interpreting and we're supposed to be accurate, right? We're supposed to interpret not just the words that people say, but also their tone, their intonation, all of those different things. And so what ends up happening is when you're interpreting, it feels a lot like acting sometimes, especially when I interpret for pediatrics. Some of the providers are just so full of energy, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, where do I pull this from? And so you kind of have to get in the right headspace for it. And then, you know, within kind of related to interpreting, you even have voice acting, right? That's something that I've always kind of secretly wanted to be a voice actor. I think I would be very good at it. You know, I've actually recorded myself a lot, doing like practice audios and scripts for interpreters, and you have to become, I'll have to do different voices for the same script so it doesn't sound like me, or so it sounds like 2 different people. And I'll tell you, recording yourself and recording your voice is a really, really useful tool as an interpreter. You learn a lot about your voice and you learn a lot about your limits. Like I've learned that sometimes when I think my voice sounds bad, it actually sounds completely normal. I've also learned, ooh, I should probably drink some water. I've also learned that if you eat or drink something right before you record yourself, you're going to have more clicks and pops because your mouth is still pretty moist. And so it's going to sound, you're going to have lots of clicks and pops. So I've learned some very interesting things. And I can literally look at a waveform of my voice, of me saying something, and I can figure out, you know, whether I have any unnecessary clicks or pops. And sometimes I can even recognize the words that I'm saying by looking at the waveforms. That is literally how much time I've spent editing my voice and recording my voice for interpreting practice stuff. Look at this. We only have 3 of these left. Oh my gosh. I told you I'd get better at it as I kept on doing it. These little fiddly pieces. Okay. Shito, you want food in here, baby? So what our kitten does when he wants food is he will go up to the kitchen cabinet where his food is. He will actually go and hit the door. So you'll hear him kind of popping the door open and closed to let us know that he wants food. But his food is right here in my office with me. And the reason being because my brother's cat, his name is Termy. My brother named him when he was 6, Termy after the Terminator. And he's kind of a derpy cat too. He has kind of a derpy face, but he's very sweet. But he is a glutton. He really likes to eat my cat's food. Yeah, your food's right there, baby. So we're going to come back on the regular camera because we have a visitor. Hi, Shito. What'd you do, baby? You have food right there. Typical cat. He wants other food. He doesn't want the food that he has. He wants different food because that's how cats are. Marcos, you ask, when you create interpretation practice, do you base them on experience or make them up? So obviously we have to follow HIPAA, right? We have to make sure that we're respecting patient privacy. So occasionally I will incorporate like general themes from like medical encounters. Like, you know, if you have the, goodness gracious, you can come up with so many. The patient who answers every yes or no question the provider asks with their life story. Like you have those patients where the provider asks them, so can you tell me exactly when the pain started? And then the patient goes, well, it all started in 1492 with the arrival of Christopher Columbus, right? And then you have the patient where the provider wants them to explain their pain. Like, can you explain to me how much it hurts right now? Can you explain to me on a scale from 1 to 10, how much does your hip hurt? And then the patient will go, a lot. No, I need a number. 1 to 10. A lot. No, I need a number. A lot. So like things like that, like common themes, yes, I will incorporate from real interpreting experiences, but nothing that would like give a person away, right? Because we have to make sure that that would be the worst thing ever. Can you imagine if someone interpreted for you and went on a YouTube channel and just like started talking about or writing scripts about your experiences? So it'll be more about trends and not individual patients. And I always make sure that when I'm writing a script, I never use names that like come out of my head. I always use a random name generator. And to make things even more random, I even have like a spreadsheet where I have like different kinds of circumstances that can come up. And sometimes these are things that interpreters have shared on like interpreter groups and things like that I've read about that I thought were interesting. And I'll kind of like put them all together and make up a completely new random script. I never base any of the things that I write scripts on off of real patients, just because of HIPAA. And I would never even if something's completely imaginary and made up, I would never want someone to watch that and think, oh my gosh, this is so similar to my experience and this person interpreted for me. So I really try to mix it up and make it as random as possible. And so you have to be like really imaginative to come up with these things sometimes. I actually just finished a project where I had to write 8 interpreting practice scripts. And I had to invent these stories of things that had really never happens. I'd never interpreted for these experiences. I have to write scripts about medical disciplines, medical specialties I've never interpreted for before. Um, so yeah, I make them up. I try to be as creative as possible. Um, and I always try, and when I write scripts, I really like to incorporate lessons. So you'll notice with a lot of my interpreting practice scripts, there are lessons in them, or you're being educated about something. Like maybe uh, I wrote one script about a news story that I had read where a woman had cancer and her insurance company didn't approve an injection that they said that they would approve for her. And it turns out the whole reason was because she didn't order it from the very particular specialty pharmacy the insurance company expected her to order it from. And so I wrote a script about that. And I really made sure, like, I incorporate, like, what do I think about that situation? I think that situation, to be quite frank, is bullshit. Like, that woman should have gotten her medication. And they're causing so much unnecessary suffering in that circumstance for that person. And so I really made sure to highlight, how much that person in the script, like, it was based on a real news story that I read. But I really wanted to highlight how much that insurance company's actions resulted in her suffering. And so a lot of the scripts that I write really highlight the dysfunction of the US healthcare system. And, I had a recent script that I posted on my channel about a month or two ago, 2 months ago, I think, where it's based off of how the fact that I have a phobia of needles. Yes, and it's really funny because I have my lip pierced, haha. But I've had a big reason why I'm scared of needles is because of how cruel people have been to me in the healthcare system. How people have responded to my fear of needles. How I've had providers hold me down and do things to me with needles against my, without my express consent, especially when I was a child. And so I like those things. I want to just show people how those things can really negatively impact people. But then I also like to include examples in scripts. Like some of the scripts that I write, they have branching options where if you choose one thing happens. If you choose something else happens. And I really like those because it really enables me to show people how using certain interpreting skills can really make or break some of these encounters. Like we try and pretend, I think, that interpreters are invisible, but we're not. We're not invisible. Even if I do feel like the moments where I'm the best interpreter, where I'm really like, wow, I did a great job at that. They are the moments where I kind of fade into the background the most. And, the communication just flourishes and I'm able to, support that through my interpreting. But we can and do have effects on the clinical encounter when we're interpreting. And something as simple as saying yes to a provider and agreeing to do something that provider wants you to do can have a negative effect or even a positive effect on the clinical encounter. And so using those as teaching moments and opportunity to like highlight different skills is, I also think, something that I try to do a lot in my scripts. So let's see here. Yeah, I kind of have oh, that's so sweet. I love that. I'm going to go back and read some comments because we have quite a few comments on the screen right now. Let's see. Okay, so I missed that one. The fact that there's no verb conjugation in English except S for third person and to be verb, and also no genders like feminine and masculine is an advantage for English. I agree. Yeah, that's something that a lot of people struggle with in interpreting between English and other languages is gendered language or gender neutrality of messages. Um, been working as a remote interpreter since last August. Oh, your channels is one of the channels that really helped me improve. Yay! I'm so glad. That's what I love to hear. I want people to really the whole reason why I do my channel and what I do is because I want people to provide the best service they can to the people we interpret for. That's what's really important to me. And then Marcos, you say, I think that's very interesting. It's like you're making your own art with hidden protest message. I love that. God bless you too. I hope you're having a wonderful new year as well. Well, I mean, it's not 2024 yet. It almost is. I mean, it's going to be very chill for me. It's going to be very chill. I'm going to kind of just have some time to just kind of decompress and everything. I do have to get caught up on some work, so there's that. Wow, I've almost been doing this for 3 hours. I cannot believe this. But it's almost done, and I'm going to have this cool new thing in my office, and it'll be in the background of like a lot of my videos. And if you were here watching me build this, you're going to look at this thing in the background of my videos, and you're going to be like, I was there. I was there when she put it together. That'd be so toy. All right. Yeah, I mean, it's Sunday, right? Like, didn't have any classes to teach today. I am behind on my work, but I needed a break, y'all. This week has been like so rough. A lot of stuff going on. So this to me, putting together this Lego set is actually me taking a break. Don't judge me. All right. I think it's very creative. Like this is a little frog from a Lego set. So this is actually a little frog, but I'm using it in the center of this orchid. I think that's so cool. Like they're so the people who create Lego sets, they're so creative. And then when you see the different ways that they use different pieces, it kind of puts it in your mental database of when you're building your own things from your own mind, like how to make them cooler. I mean, I don't really build Lego sets much anymore, but occasionally. My stepson, he is actually quite impressive. He is 13, and he really likes building his own designs from his mind. What are you doing, kitty bear? Get down. You're going to eat the Legos. Don't eat the Legos. Okay, yeah, don't call me a workaholic. Yeah, it's really hard not to be. I actually reached a really good work-life balance before the pandemic happened. And then the pandemic hit. My husband lost his job. Right now, my husband is actually going back to school for chemistry. So since basically June of 2020, I've been the person supporting the family. And it's really hard to have a work-life balance when you're supporting 3, sometimes 4 people. It's really tough. And then even like sometimes when I have a day off, it's really tough because my brain is still in work mode. So yeah. So this is actually like a nice transition for me, I guess, because it's not quite work. Yes, I'm talking about work. it helps that I like interpreting, that I'm very passionate about interpreting. No, it shouldn't be all interpreting all the time. But it's also really hard because, I do work pretty much 7 days a week. Because, when I say I work 7 days a week, it's not I'm working 7 days a week from 9 to 5. I usually, on the days where I'm not interpreting, I'll teach in the morning. But again, it's really hard to get into a mind space where I'm not focusing on work when I have to kind of go 7 days a week. No, that's not rude. I know you're trying to be silly. It's fine. I'm not very easily offended, believe it or not. No, it's fine. Yeah, and it kind of sucks because I have that interpreter and translator peer support group, which is a Facebook group that I run. And we also have like meetings where people can come and kind of talk about the challenges that they face, to their mental health as an interpreter. And we talk a lot about work-life balance. And it's really tough for me because I'm just kind of like, I want to encourage everyone to take the breaks that they need to take. But also at the same time, I'm horrible at it myself. And two, it's tough. It's really tough because everything's getting so much more expensive. And then we all know as interpreters, it's kind of like there's always that downward pressure. Everyone's always trying to pressure us to work more for less money, right? It's really tough to strike a balance there. It's really tough to have a work-life balance when, everything's kind of like working against us, it feels like. But this is what Legos are for. All right, I'm almost done. It's almost happened. Here we go. See, now I'm like an expert. I could put this set together in half the time now. I mean, now that I'm already done, but And see, this is kind of like, I dare say, this is kind of like practicing interpretation. I know, I'm such a nerd. I relate everything back to interpretation. But, okay, that wasn't right. But it's kind of like interpretation in the sense that, like, when you first start doing it, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? This is so hard. Like talking while putting together a Lego set. Are you kidding me? That's wild. Like, you don't think it's hard until you actually try to do it. And now I'm almost done and I'm getting really fast at this. So it's kind of like interpreting. Practice makes perfect, right? I've had a lot of practice with this Lego set at this point. Here we go. Oh, yeah. Talking about economic situation in Argentina, right? I have a couple of people I talk to from Argentina. It's tough. Inflation and everything. I mean, I'm in the United States, and that's the thing, is like people think like in the US, people make so much money, and it's like, do you realize how much it costs to live? So expensive. Oh my gosh. And that's like in the past year in the city that I live in, rent has gone up like 33% or something like that. And it's already so expensive. It makes up so much of what you earn. I also compare everything with interpretation. Yeah, fair. Okay. So it looks like I'm going to be putting these flowers on this thing, but it's very confusing. Like, look at this. They just give me this picture and they're like, put flowers on. All right, y'all. Where am I putting these flowers on? All right, I'm going to put this right here. And now it says that I put the flowers on. I mean, it doesn't say with any words. It just has arrows. Okay, so it looks like I'm going to face it the same way that it's facing in the picture. Okay, so it's like, wait a second. It's like this. No, this I guess should go here. And this. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so you're just gonna have to bear with me on this, okay? All right, so this one. Wait, do the pinky parts go on top or on bottom? The pinky parts go on bottom. Okay, pinky parts go on bottom. This goes right. Oh my God, I'm gonna break the flower. Oh my God, it's so hard to get in there. All right. Okay, I got it on. All right. And that's gonna go like that. The kitten is very, very curious about what I'm doing right now. Okay. All right, so we have that. And then, what? Okay. And this one goes right here. Oh no. Oh my gosh. There is no way I'm talking while I'm putting this together right now. Okay. Lots of coffee will do the trick. Oh, that's the thing is I get migraines and I can't drink too much coffee. Otherwise, it gives me migraines. So I try to limit myself. You all are going to like lose your minds when you hear this, but I limit myself to 1 or 2 cups of coffee per week. Yeah, that's it. That's right. Judge me now all you want. Where does this go? Oh my gosh, this is so hard. Oh, it goes over here. I see. So I guess I'm just supposed to find the holes. Okay. Ah, no, the leaf. Ah, it's okay. I know where it goes. Okay. You can tell that this is not a professional Lego channel. I highly doubt on channels where people actually put like Lego sets and things together that they don't scream when things fall. Okay. Okay, we got 3 more. I don't know where the heck they're going to go. They're going to go somewhere. Okay, I'm going to study this. Okay. So that goes, right. This goes right here. Oh my gosh. I know that a lot of people have bought this Lego set for people who don't normally put together Lego sets, and that's kind of cruel. Because I've put together probably hundreds of Lego sets in my life, and this one's actually a little bit challenging. It has lots of little fiddly pieces. Okay, let's see where the next one goes. But Lego has been really stepping up their game. They have a lot of really cool Lego sets out now. I saw one the other day that was a Japanese castle. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. Would probably take you about 2 years to build, but you know, it's awesome. I don't think that's supposed to be facing that way. Oh no, it looks like it is. It's supposed to be like facing that way. Okay. It's like nature. Nature is beautiful because it's random. There we go. Okay. And then I have one more and I have to figure out where the fudge it goes. Okay. So I got that one. I feel like I made a boo-boo on something. Yeah, I don't think this is supposed to be here. Kelly, how could you? So this is where the little tool is helpful. Oh God, I just shot it all the way across the floor. Thankfully the kitten wasn't there, otherwise I would have shot him in the face. Do you have any other Lego sets you can show? Oh, I forgot to say at the beginning, welcome to Linguists and Legos. I don't have any other Lego sets that I've built that I can show because a lot of the Lego sets that I built, I'll be real, I built them when I was a kid. This is weird. That goes there, there. So I think it's kind of crowded. Maybe if I do it like this. My stepson, he does design his own, like, ooh, let's see. Lean it back a little bit. That's what it looks like so far. I think I have to do some stuff with like the soil, but it looks pretty close to the picture so far. So this is the picture. I'm trying not to bend it back too far to where it'll break, but it's very close to the picture. So I feel like I've done a good job. But yeah, my stepson, he builds his own, he really likes tanks, like war tanks. And he will build his own tanks based on actual tank designs from loose Lego pieces. And they're very impressive. So those are really the only like things that we have built in the house out of Legos are those. Let's see here. So, yes. So I have more things that I need to add here. So I'm supposed to be adding like some root-like things. There's 2 of them. So these are like the root-like things that are going to be going in there. 1 cup of coffee on the weekends. Oh, that sounds so nice. Yeah, I need my coffee for when I'm working. I think I'm missing the other little piece. I think that might have been the piece that fell behind my desk. Oh, well. It fell behind the desk, so I would have to literally like go behind the desk to get it. But where does this go? It says it just like, it like rests in here, it looks like. It literally looks like it just like rests on top of it. Weird. Okay. Oh no, it's right here. It was on top of that. Okay. It was hidden. And then this one kind of like, literally, there's nothing to attach it to. And then, let's see here. So I have 6 of these. So 6 of these little, I'll hold them up. You know what's funny is I'm losing sunlight. Because I was using the natural light in my office because otherwise, if I turned on the light above, it casts this really bright light. Ooh, I almost lost that one. It casts a really bright light on the table that I'm using. So we're using these flat pieces right here. And these flat pieces are, oh, and we need these. Oh my goodness. So there's 7 light ones and 7 dark ones. So, oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm just going to set these down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. That's about all I can do in French now. All right, so that's what it says I do. It's so unclear what I'm supposed to do with these things. Oh. Do I just kind of like dump them in there? It literally looks like they just want me to dump them in here. Look, there's like nothing to attach them to. It literally looks like you just dump them in there. Like it's hard to tell on the picture. Oh, I only know English and Spanish I can speak fluently. French, I used to be able to speak fluently, but the Spanish is holding the French hostage in my brain. And then I know some things in Japanese. Like I know ich, ni, san, yon, go. That's about it. All right. So it seems like I just have to strategically arrange this fake Lego mulch in here. So I'm going to strategically arrange it. It's happening. Things are going. I guess it's just to kind of cover up the guts underneath. Interesting. This is the first time I've ever put together a Lego set where they literally just say, and throw the stuff in there. Usually there's very particular placement of things. So put that there. But I guess it makes sense because it says here in the almighty booklet, it says orchids are often potted with mulch to allow airflow and drainage for healthy roots. Here the mulch is built from claw elements from Lego Nexo Knights sets. Ooh. Okay. Interesting. So yes, this is designed to imitate real mulch, but it's Legos. So fancy. That's so creative, though. I'm very impressed with you, Lego. I mean, Lego has always impressed me, but it's just very creative. All right, I don't know where I'm going to fit all this, but I don't want to break anything. Don't let me break nothing. Come on. I wish you could see me, like, maneuvering. All right. Oh, wait, there's one more. All right. Oh, my gosh. It happened. That's the Lego set. And maybe now, I'm coming back over to my comp cam. All right. So I'm actually going to turn the light back on in my office. So please stand by. All right. Oh, no, it's backwards. Oh, well. All right. So this is the Lego Orchid set. We put it together. Yay. Now, again, the reason why I built the Lego Orchid set is because this is usually the fate that befalls the plants that get put in my office. And you know what's really funny is I had a fern in my office, and that fern was dying. It was dying. And I took it out of my office, and you know what's funny? The plant started flourishing as soon as I took it out of my office. So you're going to see where I'm going to put my little plant. I want you to see where I'm going to put it in my office so you always know that it's there. Okay? Yes, I am wearing pajamas because today is a day off for me. Okay? No judgment. I think. Right. Ooh, it's so pretty. I'm so excited. Oh, there we go. Oh my gosh, that looks so nice. Look at that. That is great. Oh my gosh. Now, see, I'm going to show you the other sets that I had pulled out to put together in case that didn't take me enough time. 3 hours, I think it's enough time. This is a little mini Lego Star Wars Millennium Falcon. So maybe I can build this in another video. This one is only 92 pieces. The one that we just did is 608 pieces. Okay. So this one, if this took me 3 hours with 608 pieces, this should take me 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, I imagine. And then I also have we got this for Christmas from my sister-in-law for all of us to put together. It is an X-Wing. This is a very, very large set. This set is 1,949 pieces. So I imagine that this one will likely take us, if that one took me with 1,000 some pieces, that one was like 1,000 pieces, right? No, this one was 608 pieces. This one has 3 times as many pieces. This one will likely take us 9 hours to put together. So please join me next time for the next Legos and Linguists video, where we'll be putting together this Star Wars X-Wing that is 1,949 pieces. And we'll use that to talk about all of the complaints that we have with the language services industry. Okay? No, we're not going to put this together. That's not going to happen. I would just be on YouTube all day and all night. That's not going to happen. Okay? But thank you so much for joining me for this video where I put together our beautiful, our amazing Lego Orchid. Oh my gosh, it looks so nice up there. Look how nice that looks. That looks gorgeous. Wow. Well, I hope you all have a happy new year. And thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm going to go actually eat something now because I'm kind of hungry.